Today I thought we'd do something a little different. I thought we'd try a new game that I decided to call, Are You Smarter Than a Real Estate Agent? I'm going to give you 3 real estate scenarios and see if you already know the answer on how to handle these 3 scenarios. And if you do, perhaps you should be a real estate agent. Hi, I'm Bob Woolverton. I'm with Pure Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Here on YouTube, I'm known as your Northwest Realty Advisor. I'm also the author of 2 books. The Part of Leadership No One Talks About, that's available on Amazon.com, and more importantly for viewers here, my secret wealth of information for any home seller. When we come back after this upcoming 8-second break, we'll start playing the new game I call, Are You Smarter Than a Real Estate Agent? So stick around. Welcome to Are You Smarter Than a Real Estate Agent? Okay, here's our first real estate scenario. You reach mutual acceptance on a purchase and sale agreement at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. What is the date of mutual acceptance? Is it Tuesday or is it Wednesday? Think about that for a moment. And the answer is Tuesday. Many people get confused on this because many contract deadlines end at 9 p.m. What causes this confusion for many people regarding this answer is the 9 p.m. time frame that's used in the computation of time provision that tells the parties involved in a transaction how days will be counted, or said more broadly, how time will be computed within the transaction when certain things occur. And the 9 p.m. time frame used in the computation of time is set as a deadline for the occurrence of any events that is due by a certain date during the transaction. It is not a consideration in a triggering event like obtaining mutual acceptance. For example, the buyer may have an inspection contingency that expires 10 days after the date of mutual acceptance. On the 10th day, that inspection contingency does not expire at midnight. According to the computation of time provision, it expires at 9 p.m. We also may have a situation where the seller delivers a notice of right to terminate under the buyer's financing contingency, and the buyer has 3 days following the notice of right to terminate to waive their financing contingency. The buyer's 3-day period ends at 9 p.m. on the 3rd day, not at midnight. So this 9 p.m. factor is in the computation of time. That is confusing many people. The 9 p.m. component only applies to expirations of time periods, not the initiation of a time period. So when we get mutual acceptance at 10 p.m. on Tuesday night, the date of mutual acceptance is Tuesday. Okay, here's our second scenario. How does a buyer go about recovering their earnest money if their financing fails? So in this example, assume the purchase and sale agreement, the buyer has a financing contingency stating that if they can't get a loan to purchase the home, the purchase and sale agreement will terminate and the earnest money deposited by the buyer will be returned to the buyer. So the question is, if the buyer's financing fails, how does the buyer recover their earnest money? Think about that for a moment. The buyer does not recover earnest money under the financing contingency unless the buyer provides from the buyer's lender the letter described in paragraph 5 of Form 22A. The letter must identify the date of the buyer's loan application, which is supported by the loan disclosure document. The letter must also identify that buyer had sufficient funds to close the transaction, and the letter must show the reason the loan was declined, and that reason must support the buyer's good faith effort to obtain the loan. All of this is articulated in paragraph 5 of the financing addendum to the purchase and sale agreement. You see here, if the buyer has not waived the financing contingency and is unable to obtain financing by the closing date after a good faith effort, then, on buyer's notice, this agreement shall terminate. The earnest money shall be refunded to the buyer after lender confirms in writing all of the elements we just described that need to be contained in the letter. Now, let's assume the buyer did make a good faith effort and the letter from the lender bears that out. The real question is, logistically, how does the buyer get their earnest money back? You would think merely attaching the lender's denial letter and the fact that paragraph 5 says the agreement is terminated and the buyer gets their earnest money back would be sufficient. But oh, wait, grasshopper, it's not that simple. The buyer's broker needs to complete a Form 90I, the buyer's notice of termination, financing unavailable, which says the buyer is giving notice to the seller that after a good faith effort, the buyer is unable to obtain financing and the buyer hereby elects to terminate the agreement and demands the return of their earnest money. That should take care of it, right? Oh, but wait, there is one more form that needs to be completed, and that's the Form 50, Authorization to Disperse Earnest Money. This form gives written instructions to the escrow company that says both the buyer and the seller agree the buyer should get their earnest money back, and this form has to be signed by both the buyer and the seller. Now, after these forms have been completed, the buyer can finally get their earnest money back. And now on to our last scenario for today. You are the buyer of a home. Congratulations on your purchase, by the way. When you get ready to move in, you call the water company to have the water turned on and to put the account in your name. When you contact the water company, you discover there is an unpaid water bill from the previous owner in the amount of $650, and the water company will not turn on your water until you, the new homeowner, pays the bill. Whose responsibility was it to make sure the previous owner's water bill got paid before you moved in? What's your answer? The escrow company can be obligated to collect from the seller at the time of closing funds necessary to pay unpaid utility bills owing to a utility company that has the authority to lien the seller's property. However, in order to trigger the statutory obligation upon the escrow company, the buyer's broker has to do two things. First, the buyer's broker has to check the box in paragraph 12 of the purchase and sale agreement that indicates the parties want the services of the escrow company to collect seller's unpaid utility bills. That sentence then directs the buyer's broker to attach a Form 22K identification of utilities. If the buyer's broker leaves the form mostly blank, for example, if the form only lists the names of the utility companies but no address, i.e. does not provide all the information required by the Form 22K, then as a result, the escrow company has no obligation to contact the utility company to determine whether or not the seller's utility bill was paid. Why did this happen? Because the buyer's broker did not fill in the information of the Form 22K or did not verify the form was complete. Now, with that said, you'll see at the bottom of Form 22K, the seller is supposed to provide all of that information within 5 days of mutual acceptance. And if they don't, or in this case, if they didn't, you could sue them for you having to pay their $650 water bill, but you're going to have to pay the $650 first to get your water turned on, and then go through the hassle and expense of filing a lawsuit against the seller when all of this could have been prevented by the buyer's broker making sure that 1, the correct box is checked on the purchase and sale agreement, and 2, all of the contact information for the utilities is provided in the Form 22K. Well, that music means we're out of time for today. How did you do on our little game show today? Were you smarter than a real estate agent, or will you plan to hire a smart real estate agent to protect your legal interest in your next real estate transaction? I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, click that subscribe button and click that reminder bell. That reminder bell will notify you when I post new videos. If you'd like to get a copy of my book called My Secret Wealth of Information for Any Home Seller, I'll post a link in the comment section below. All you have to do is tell me where to send the book. If you'd like to contact me, you can find my email address and my telephone number in the description below and at the end of this video. Call me or email me. I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to represent you in your next real estate transaction. I'm Bob Woolverton. I'm with Pure Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Here on YouTube, I'm known as your Northwest Realty Advisor. Every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., I post new videos about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, as well as some home tours and listing videos. I'll see you next week.